beautiful people. This quarter pipe right behind me changed my life. And I'm not even being dramatic when I say that. I really think it did change my life because there's one trick that I learned on here. It was tail block. So in this video, we're gonna be talking all about how to do tail blocks at my local home park where I learned how to do them myself. Super stoked. We're gonna talk about backside and frontside and just some of the fundamentals that you need to know how to do before doing tail blocks. So let's jump into mastering tail blocks. The irony in all of this is that I would never try to tail block on this quarter pipe anymore. Like I'm just not willing to try that because it's metal coping. Tail blocking on metal coping is just like you're asking for danger because you're stalling on that very pivotal part of your tail of your skateboard. Unless you have a square tail, there's a little more of a pivot area on a square tail. But yeah, I would never do tail block on metal coping. I guess that would be my first suggestion, is find some good noping, and that's basically concrete coping at a skate park that just doesn't have metal, or you can learn it on parking block coping or pole coping, but having noping, which is no edge, just nice concrete, is going to be a key element for learning tail block. Now, the next big advantage that you can get for learning tail blocks is having a nice squared off tail. Squared off tail meaning it's flat on one edge of the tail versus being a full round radius. You can learn them on a popsicle board. I'll show you some examples of doing them on my popsicle board. It's not much of a difference. It's just going to be an advantage into learning them because you don't have to balance the actual blocking. Kind of have a bigger margin for error essentially with the square tail. With the round tail, you have to be a little more precise. So those are the two things, is finding the right obstacle to do it on and also having a board that's going to work to your advantage. However, you don't need to have that. The obstacle is definitely the most important part. Now, while you might be trying to learn tail blocks intentionally, I actually did learn them sort of by accident, and there's some things that I think I can take away from that finding that you can apply to your intentional learning of tail blocks. And what that is basically just doing backside kick turns. So we'll go over backside tail blocks before frontside because I do think frontside are a little bit harder. Backside comes a little more natural to most people. So basically you're just doing backside kick turns on transition. That's the only trick that you really need to know how to do before doing tail blocks. And what you're gonna do is eventually grab your nose. That's gonna change the game for me, for all transition tricks really. So learning how to kick turn and grab that nose. And a lot of that is not really reaching too far down, because when you're reaching too far down, you lose a lot of your kind of your balance essentially. So instead of leaning too far down, you actually want to squat down. So bending your knees down so you're closer to the board. And then as you're turning your board up, your board's gonna be higher, closer to your hand, and just grabbing the side of the board and kick turning. Just getting used to those kick turn nose grabs is gonna be a big advantage to this trick in figuring out how to get up and locking it in. So yeah, just get really used to kick turning and grabbing that nose. And then eventually, as you kick turn and grab that nose, you want to start to hear your tail churn at the bottom. So it'll be like, you just want to hear a little bit of a noise of that concrete hitting the ground as you're grabbing your nose and you're kick turning. So you're almost tail blocking, but you're not lifting up too much. You're just a quick little straight churn and then back into the transition. And as you get more and more confident with those kick turns and grabbing the nose, you're eventually gonna get closer to the lip. So eventually you're kind of grabbing that nose, scraping that tail ever so slightly right at the lip. And this is where it really becomes a pivotal thing of just going more up straight and down. So you're not going as wide anymore. Once we start trying to think about the actual tail block motion, it's more up, kind of blocking it and back down versus the wide kick turn nose grab. What shifts your body and shifts it from a tail block to a kick turn is putting your weight on top of the transition, getting your shoulders up on top of the transition. So once you're confident in grabbing that nose, you could stay in the inside, but you sort of shift your shoulders up to the upside. That way you can actually block your tail on top of the coping. And then from there, it's a lot about churning. So the whole time, you're not really going up and you're stalling, you're actually churning the whole time. So as you get in here, you're grabbing your nose, you're churning to go back into the transition. So the whole time, the churn is kind of like how you lock your tail block. It's really in the churn. And a lot of it is in your shoulders too. You essentially, once you grab that nose, you lock in your shoulders into position, and then you're churning. The next thing you want to focus on is your back foot and the stiffness of it. So you're going up, you're going a little straighter now, you're grabbing that nose, you're going down, you're shifting. Now with your back leg, you kind of need to extend it and lock it and push it in to where you're almost doing like a little bit of a pushing out the ant move, similar to a tail slide. You're just stomping it and you're churning. So using your hips and your shoulders, basically, you want to have everything swinging at the same time. And similar to the pendulum technique that I mentioned in a lot of my other how to skate transition videos, it's the same thing. You want to keep your head on the inside and using your body as a pendulum. Same thing. You want to stiffen that back leg out is what I'm saying. And really push down on your tail, because that's the foundation of everything. And be light on your front foot. Your front foot is just more of a guide. You're not pressing down on it. You're not doing much. You want to be light on that front foot so that grabbing your nose, that's what's really controlling everything. From there, you start to churn and aim it in. And it's really easy to overturn it. You can overturn it. You don't want to get in or not churn it enough. Those are definitely common mistakes. It's really about learning how to get up and grab that nose, stiffen that back foot on, squash those ants, and just churn. That's all you're getting used to. And then eventually you can start aiming where you want to land. Now the blocking on your actual tail can be pretty difficult. You can practice this on flat ground. You basically just have your tail into the ground like you're doing a tail block on transition, even though it's flat. You grab your nose and you just churn. That kind of gets you used to the motion of churning in the tail block position, if you will. So sometimes just practicing this on flat will get you used to that motion. So when you are going up on the transition, you're on top of the coping, you'll sort of be familiar with that motion of churning and falling back in. You're going like this, you're on top of the transition, you just put your tail on the ground and sort of swing your way back into the transition. So this will get used to the motion. Now from here, you got to remember that you started with kick turn nose grab, and it's basically the same thing. It's scary, letting go and falling into the transition. But once you turn around and you know you're going straight back in, you do at some point have to trust yourself in that skateboarding in general. There's always that sort of breaking point of like unsurety and just trusting, either slamming or making, and then correcting your mistakes if you do slam. So hopefully those give you a couple tools for backside tail blocks. Now I have a couple of suggestions for frontside as well. And all these different tips can hopefully give you a little bit of a insight to how tail blocks are done. Frontside, backside, saran wrap to fakie. I mean, they're all pretty similar variations. Once you learn the backside tail block, everything else will come a lot quicker. Just remember, you're basically churning from up top, and then once you're right here, it's really about letting go. Once you're at this point, because you don't want to let go too late to where you're close to the transition. You want to let go up here so that you're sort of doing it all at once. You're letting go and you're falling into the transition all at once. You want it to be nice and seamless so there's no jerky motion. This is going to take some trial and error for sure. Now the big difference with a frontside tail block versus the backside is just your position of your body and the formation of your body. What I would say the big technique that really helps for me with the frontside tail block, you kind of want to think of it as a banana. Your whole body shape is a banana. Your legs are down here, your body's going out, your torso is going out, and then your head and your shoulders are all leaned in. So the idea there is you're really like flexing on the outside and then falling back in. That technique really helped with me. And the other thing with frontside is you don't have to worry about getting so much on it. With backside, you really want to be up on there so you can see the transition and fall in. With frontside, you can be a little more on the inside, and that's what I would suggest is like, you also can press, and that's the big difference. So these 3 different tips will hopefully help you. So pressing super hard and leaning on the inside, almost just like fully falling into the inside. With backside, it's harder to do this. Frontside, you can use that to your advantage. You're pressing on that back tail, you're making that banana motion, and then you're falling back in, similar to like a frontside kick turn, pretty similar. But yeah, those are the big differences. Like, you can really stay on the inside, you can press against it so much more, and you make that banana motion, and then you fall back in. Obviously, this is just kind of more of a summary of tail block for frontside, but yeah, this video can get too long. Hopefully these little tips and techniques do help you for figuring out tail block stuff. I appreciate all you beautiful people for watching. You're amazing. Time for me to go check in with work, get the day started. I love getting out and filming a transition video before starting my work day. It's a pretty, it's just a good feeling. Hopefully you can get out there, get motivated, go learn some new skateboard tricks. Subscribe if you're not already, support the channel, smash that like button. I appreciate all of you that do. See you guys in the next one. Mash.